The church told you to wait for clarity before you move. Abraham moved before the clarity came. Hebrews 11 verse 8. He went out not knowing where he was going. Not partially knowing. Not mostly knowing. Not knowing at all. And that sentence is in the Faith Hall of Fame, not as a warning about what went wrong, but as the definition of what faith looks like when it actually works. You have been waiting for the map before you take the first step. Waiting for the full plan before you begin. Waiting for the destination to be confirmed before you leave the starting point. And that waiting has felt responsible, prudent, even faithful. Abraham's story does not call it faithful. It calls it the thing faith replaces. Read that again. Part 1. He left one of the most advanced cities in the ancient world, for a destination he could not name. Genesis 11 verse 31 establishes where Abraham was starting from. Ur of the Chaldeans. Archaeological evidence confirms that Ur was one of the most developed urban centers of the ancient world, sophisticated architecture, established trade routes, written language, organized religion, running water systems. Abraham was not leaving a village. He was leaving civilization for wilderness. And the only information he was given about the destination was that God would show it to him after he left. But here is what nobody told you. The Hebrew word for the land I will show you in Genesis 12 verse 1 is Asher Erika, a future active construction that carries the sense of continuous revelation. Not a single moment of showing but an ongoing disclosure. God was not promising to reveal the destination at the moment of departure. He was promising to keep showing Abraham the way as he moved. The map was not going to be given all at once. It was going to be unfolded step by step, but only to someone already walking. The revelation was not the condition for the departure. The departure was the condition for the revelation. Part 2. He was 75 years old when he left. Genesis 12 verse 4. So Abram left as the Lord had told him. Abram was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. 75. Not a young man making an impulsive decision with nothing to lose. A man at the peak of his establishment, property, household, reputation, networks built over decades. Leaving all of it for a direction rather than a destination. The age matters because the cost of leaving was at its highest. Everything he was leaving had taken a lifetime to build. Think about that for a second. Most people assume the best time to step out in faith is when you have the least to lose. Abraham stepped out when he had the most to lose. The obedience was not easy because he had nothing. It was costly because he had everything, and left it for a word. One word from God outweighed decades of accumulated security. That is not recklessness. That is what it looks like when someone actually believes the one who is speaking. Part 3. The first thing God did after Abraham arrived was tell him this was not the final stop. Genesis 12 verses 6 to 7. Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of More at Shechem. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. Then Abram set out from there toward the hills east of Bethel. He arrived, received a word, built an altar, and kept moving. He did not settle at the first place God appeared. He received the partial revelation and continued. Now stop. Many of you will push back on this. Good. Because this is the part of Abraham's journey most people miss entirely. The first appearance of God in Canaan did not complete the picture. It expanded it, and sent Abraham further. The pattern of Abraham's faith was not arrival. It was continuous movement in response to continuing revelation. He never stopped moving until God told him where to stop. And that instruction came only to someone who was already in motion. Part 4. The moral dilemma this story forces. Many of you will push back on this. Good. Because Abraham's obedience raises a question nobody answers honestly. He left Ur, and when he arrived, the Canaanites were already in the land. He arrived at the promised destination and it was occupied by someone else. God's promise was for his offspring, not for him to immediately possess. He lived in tents in a land that was promised to his descendants, not to himself. Tell me in the comments. If you stepped out in faith and arrived to find someone else already in what was promised to you, would you have stayed? Type Amen if you are claiming this, that the promise may not be for the season you step out in, and you will step out anyway. Part 5. What kept him moving was not clarity. It was the altar. Genesis 12 verses 7 to 8. So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. Then Abram set out and built another altar. The pattern throughout Genesis 12 to 13 is consistent. Abraham moves, God appears, Abraham builds an altar, Abraham moves again. The altar was not a marker of arrival. It was a marker of encounter. Each altar said, God appeared here, God spoke here, I am continuing from here. The altars were the record of a man who did not wait to understand the whole journey before moving, but who stopped to acknowledge every moment God made himself known along the way. The altars were the practice of gratitude in motion. Not gratitude for arriving, but gratitude for the encounter on the road. Let that land. Part 6. He is called the Father of Faith, not the Father of Certainty. Romans 4 verse 3. Abraham believed God and it was credited to him as righteousness. Not Abraham understood God. Not Abraham had clarity about what God was doing. Abraham believed God. In the specific, concrete situation of leaving a known city for an unknown destination, at 75, with a wife who was barren and a promise that involved offspring he did not yet have. The belief was not general optimism. It was specific trust in a specific word, with no supporting evidence beyond the word itself. Part 7. The journey did not end with Abraham, it began with Abraham. Hebrews 11 verse 13. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. Abraham never fully possessed what was promised. He died in the land as a foreigner, having lived in tents, having seen the promise from a distance. And yet Hebrews 11 verse 10 says he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. What Abraham was walking toward was larger than what he could receive in one lifetime. He was not the destination. He was the beginning of a direction. Here is what Abraham did not have when he left Ur. He did not have a map. He did not have a timeline. He did not have certainty that the destination would be what was promised. He had one sentence, go to the land I will show you. And the showing happened on the road. Not before it. You are not waiting for more information. You are waiting for the kind of certainty that faith was specifically designed to operate without. The map does not come before the first step. It comes to the person who is already walking. If you want to understand what God does when you pray for something and He answers a different prayer than the one you prayed, watch the video on screen now. 3 men asked God for something specific. What they received was more than what they asked for, but it looked nothing like the request. Drop "I received this" in the comments if you are choosing today to take the first step before the address arrives, and trust that the showing happens on the road.